How often do people confuse Mr. Beat with Mr. Beast?
Never. No, yeah, all the time. Yeah. If anything, though, I've benefited from that because people are searching for him and they accidentally forget to type the S. And so they come across my channel and they're like, who's this guy? But they end up watching anyway. So I'm not the only Mr. Beat, apparently, too. There's like this guy in Mexico that, I mean, it's just my name.
Your name is really, it's Mad Beat.
It really is Mad Beat.
It's not a come on.
No.
Yeah.
And my brother is, we have a band, and my brother is a drummer, so I think it fits in more appropriately than me. But
right.
I do beatbox on occasion. I'm not going to right now. I don't want to scare people. But
did you get the 1 million subscriber plaque yet? Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, you're going to get it here soon, too.
Scratching and clawing every day, but you're there.
It's huge. It's like...
Really?
Yeah, I was amazed at how big it is. It's like, because you have the 100,000 one.
Yes.
This one's like 2.5 times as big as that.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I've seen people display them, and they never seemed like they were that. I just kind of assumed it was the same size.
No, yeah, it took me by surprise. Maybe they've changed the like the size of it recently. I don't know. But
the efficiency experts came in and said to shrink the plaques. Nobody cared.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't set foot in the U.S. for years now. But everything I hear is it's getting pretty crazy.
Like politics?
Politics, and it just seems like people go to Thanksgiving dinner and they're in more fights than ever before, and people are just in fights with their friends, and they're cutting off. Oh, you're for Trump? I'm done with you.
Yeah. Definitely, like, just speaking from experience, like, family gatherings, you just don't bring up politics anymore. You used to be able to, but unfortunately, you can't. And I want to talk politics. I'm always wanting to talk politics. And I just, like, the only person I can talk politics with is my dad, who we disagree a lot. Mm-hmm. But we have to, like, leave the house, you know. Like, my mom's like, get out of here. Same with my wife. They don't want me near them talking about it.
And I feel like we do stuff on YouTube sometimes that's kind of down the middle. It's kind of like, hey, I see this and I see that. And people don't like that anymore. Like the pragmatism, the nuance, which to me exists in much of the rest of the world. The Americans these days, like they're having none of it.
Yeah, I make people on both sides mad, which I think is a good thing. You should make, like, you want to constantly be challenging people, and so I don't even care. I've gotten flack from all sides of the political spectrum, you know. It's all good.
Is it Mark Twain? Like whenever you find yourself in the majority, it's time to stop and reconsider.
He's got the best quotes. There's so many Mark Twain quotes. I need to make a video about that.
So to me, I found you because you talk a lot about like presidential elections and presidential history, and you have this amazing knowledge of old, like, you know, President Polk was. You know.
I have a President Polk video. James Polk. Yes.
James K. Polk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that one do well?
Not as well as I hoped, but well, I'm curious. What was the first video that you stumbled upon of mine?
Yeah, I think you never remember, do you?
Usually not.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like you just kind of, and then you kind of become more aware.
Yeah.
That's why they're saying don't do shorts, because the short thing is closed. Because you could watch 100 shorts of someone's and you still don't know who they are. But if I watch 3 or 4 of your videos, I'm like, okay, Mr. Beat.
If you do shorts, you have to do both for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always keeping that in mind. If I'm doing a short, it's like you're really just trying to get them to see you, like, because I think where you have the most creative freedom and the most joy of making videos is long form content, which is typically 20 to 30 minutes for me. But yeah.
So what are some of your favorite presidential odd facts?
Usually Andrew Jackson is the first one that comes to mind for odd presidential facts, like the fact that he was in dozens of duels throughout his life. Multiple duels he got shot at, and bullets were just stuck in his chest, and then the doctors tried to remove them, but decided not to after realizing it would actually cause him to bleed to death.
What?
So yeah, he had not one, but 2 bullets stuck in his chest for most of his life. One of them came out eventually because it kind of moved its way out, and a later doctor just popped it right out. But the other one he had for the rest of his life, and he lived a long life. That guy he should have died many times. Like there was a assassination attempt on him when he was president, and a guy fired on him, like point blank range. The gun misfired, and he had a second bullet, so he tried again. By this time, people are surrounding him, but he got a second shot, also misfired. The odds of that happening are like 1 in like 700,000 or something ridiculous.
I guess like a Bond villain at that point.
I mean, I do have a video about Andrew Jackson, and that's the most fascinating president to me, because there's so many stories like that. People just don't believe it.
Obviously, in the last couple of months, we've seen this very troubling news of these assassination attempts on Trump. And who was it that said, like, we may not be entirely able to prevent this from continuing?
I think the Secret Service needs more help. I mean, there's a second one, and for most of, I don't know how old you are, but for most of my life, this wasn't a thing. Like the 1960s there was a crazy time of assassination attempts. 70s a little bit too. Like Gerald Ford there was like 2 assassination attempts on him within a couple months span. Ronald Reagan,
of course.
Yeah, that was the last one though. For like after the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt, the Secret Service really learned a lot of lessons, and all the way. I mean, George W. Bush had an assassination attempt, but not a lot of people know about it. Obama had a couple, but they were. The Secret Service was on it enough in advance, so it wasn't that big of a deal. That's why you never heard about it.
Someone was going to try, but it wasn't like any close call.
The one that happened this year, that first one, the second one that happened is more like what happened with Obama. But that first one, just the fact that everybody saw it live, that was just insane.
It's interesting because you saw a couple years ago, there was this talk that Russia would take Kiev in a matter of days, and it was kind of like the idea that that's the superpower military fell apart. And now you see, just having turned 40, my entire life, as you said, was,
They're about the same age.
They got their stuff in order. Yeah, you're saying, the 60s. Like, you weren't born in the 60s. You weren't around in the 60s. But it's like you thought, they have this figured out. They'll make sure nothing happens. There was this sense of infallibility that, and I hate to say this because obviously I don't want anyone to get hurt, but it kind of is in a very macabre way what we talk about here. There is a crack in the veneer in Western countries now, and unfortunately that it showed through in that way too.
Yeah, we just took stability, security for granted for so many years, and I do think like worldwide you're seeing a little bit more instability, and so there's definitely this shift happening. But is that why you ended up here? Is that one reason why? Like,
well, I'll tell you what I mean. Because you said everyone's so nice, and that is true. Some of the kindest people. I would say not even nice, but kind. And you do have the Malay, which is somewhat a majority, the Muslim Malaysians. But then you have the Malaysian Chinese, who've been here for centuries. And then you have the Malaysian Indians, mostly from Southeast India. And then, of course, you have people from around the world who come in and work here, expats, what have you. And so you have that diversity, which to me speaks to what I think is a good part of the U.S. I think people live more in harmony here. Obviously, people have some political differences, but I don't see this kind of stuff really happening certainly not Singapore to the south. I think in the stuff that might happen in some of these other countries with, political, infighting, now you're seeing that happening in the U.S. We're going to charge this guy with crimes. He's going to charge you with crimes.
And gun violence.
Gun violence.
I mean, it is incredibly safe here. Like, walking around these last few days here, I've never felt not safe. And there's some neighborhoods that are not far from where I live where I don't feel safe.
Really?
And I live in Kansas. Yeah, like I'm right in the middle, flyover state. But the other thing, though, I have to ask you this question because I've watched a few of your videos since you reached out. And, I'm always fascinated by expats that just, when you chose Malaysia to spend a chunk of your life here, and you've been here for a while, how much consideration do you give to political freedom versus economic freedom, because obviously economic freedom is here, no doubt.
Yeah.
But there are things like about the political freedom here that I worry about. Like, I'm a big First Amendment guy.
Yeah. It's interesting because you look at, okay, let's take the more extreme examples in the Middle East, the Gulf, for example.
Yeah.
And we've had people who have spoken on our events who said, oh, I grew up in Saudi Arabia back before it became liberalized, and it wasn't what they say. And I think that you have safety, you have a certain harmony in those places that you don't have as some of the Western democracies become more unhinged. I guess I kind of felt like, at least the way I live, in Asia, I'm never going to look Asian. I'm never going to be like, oh yeah, you're Malaysian. I could become a Malaysian citizen, which is very difficult, but they'd be like, yeah, but you're from wherever. It's not like in the U.S. where it's like, okay, you've become American. It wouldn't be seen that way in many parts of the world. So in a sense, I kind of float above it, and I let them do their thing, and I'm not bothered by it. And it is odd that it's kind of like there's a bit more detachment than when you are in the country that you're born in, and you have this idea of fight, 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 and we got to fix it. And then if we only elect the right politicians, I kind of feel like I don't have anything here that I want to impart to the conversation, and I just kind of float above as a guest. As Doug Casey says, I'm just the white guy from somewhere else who they just kind of, all right, he's going to do what he's going to do, and they don't see me maybe as a threat, and I don't want to be a threat. I see it going the other way, where these kind of, the Western countries that say you have freedom of speech, they have all these new laws. Oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. I mean, look at what they're doing in the UK. The US may be somewhat unique in this regard.
Yeah.
And yet, I'd rather be away from all those problems and not really have such a strong opinion to speak out about. I think there's a lot of nuance to it, but maybe that's a quick version.
It's not like you're saying controversial things like you're...
like if you... Okay, I get it. Like, you're from somewhere, and that's your home, and you kind of don't consider, hey, I could go to Malaysia, or I could go anywhere. But if I choose to come here, like, why would I come and complain about what they do?
Yeah.
And it's like, and if I don't like it, I've already made the move. I don't see it as running. I see it as I love so many places around the world.
Yeah.
And I like to have them in equal measure. And yet, when there's a pandemic, I'm going to pull the lever down on one and up on another because maybe one's more restrictive and they're not looking for me to be there.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me. But yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, what I do think here is on a daily basis, people don't judge you for speech. Like, as long as you're not getting into the political stuff, which I don't care about, I mean, there's stuff, I'm sure I'd be much more controversial in the U.S. than I would be in Malaysia. People here are extremely nice to us about what we do. What did someone say earlier? We're going to get this tea for the boys and this tea for the girls. There's somebody on Twitter in the U.S., they'd have an explosion over that.
But yeah, like that detachment...
I wouldn't be sent to jail in the U.S. for that, but,
Yeah. You mentioned detachment, though. Like, yeah, you're a global citizen, and that's... I'm going to make my own video on this trip, and I can't determine... Like, it's probably going to be about either globalism or just internationalism.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of both. Mm-hmm. Like, there's this backlash against that, both those things in the United States right now. Like, tariffs and, like, barriers. And so I think that a lot of people forgot, like, no, we want things as open as possible. That's literally why the world is doing so much better now than it did even a decade ago.
The most extreme example everybody knows is Dubai and the UAE. Mm-hmm. And I think you have a lot of that in a place like here or in Singapore, where it's like, hey, listen, we have a diversity of opinions here already because we have people from all over the world, or we have our own populations from different cultures. Hey, let's listen to the people who have the best idea in their field, and let's adjust. And you compare that to places, hey, the U.S. isn't the worst on this. You go to places in Eastern Europe, hey, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how you do it isn't working as well as what Dubai is doing. Yeah. And I think that having those different opinions and having an open-mindedness, to me, there's a culture of we're open to doing it a different way because we want to improve. And I think that culture wins.
Yeah.
And so the U.S. has some element of that, but I feel like after a certain number of generations, people start to lose touch and just imagine they can do anything and the party continues. And it's like, no. Here's what made the party. Yeah. Now you're going to get rid of everything that made the party and expect the party to continue. It doesn't work that way.
Just that openness to...
I think you have to be open-minded, don't you think?
Absolutely.
And I will say that is something that for us, Midwest U.S., there's a certain humility,
Yeah.
which a lot of places don't have.
Where are you from originally?
From Ohio.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
So, Eastern Midwest. I think that humility is what built a lot of the Western world that you see, and especially the United States.
Yeah.
And yet I don't know that it's there, that kind of Midwest, perhaps it's Protestant, like hardworking, winter
Puritan.
is coming, like is that in vogue anymore?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But you go back and see family occasionally,
No.
right? No?
They come. No,
They see you.
They come to see me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's cooler here, right? It's a bit of a long trek, though. I will say there was 3 airplanes. That's my only complaint. But once we got here, yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah. Some people like to do the slow travel for that very reason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So when you say slow travel, you mean just like hang out at a place for a while in between?
Yeah. I guess everyone can define it differently, but
Yeah.
maybe my trifecta method, where they're like, if I'm going somewhere, it's for 4 months. I met a pretty well-known guy in the entertainment business. He called me up and said, "Come to my villa," last year. And he's like, "I don't go anywhere for less than 4 months. I won't come and speak at your event. Like, unless I'm going for 4 months, I'm out. I go, I get settled, and for 4 months, that's the time I get settled and I enjoy. That's slow for him."
Yeah.
Right. So he's going somewhere. And so if he can take a 16 or 20-hour plane ride in between, because it's once every 4 months.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll just do that.
Just do that.
Well, the other thing is like,
You just got to extend your stay for 4 months.
amazed by the I can work from home. I choose to be in Kansas because that's where my family is. I have kids, like I wanted to be close to grandma and grandpa. But I wasn't, if family was not holding me there, my roots were not there. Yeah, what's holding me back to live there? I mean, I think if you are especially young and single, and you work, most of the jobs you can do remotely these days. I firmly believe, like, I don't think you need to be in an office for the vast majority of jobs, so why not work wherever you want?
Do you think that's going to change? I saw Amazon's reversing in 2025, come back 5 days a week.
So mad at Amazon for doing that. Like, why? Why are they? I don't think that was one of the silver linings, I think, of the pandemic, was that it opened eyes of a lot of companies to say we can trust workers and workers are more productive at home. The research is mixed. Some studies have shown that it's not so much the case, but for the majority, I would say, like, people are getting more done in a shorter amount of time, and they're also having more free time, which means the more happy they are, the more productive they are later on. I don't know. What are your thoughts on remote work? You hate it, don't you? It's okay if you do.
No, I think that there's probably, in any organization at a certain size, you can't have all A players.
Yeah.
Like, I had a friend, he said, up to 15 people, you got to have all A players. So now we've got 100 people. And my goal is how to put more A players in over the course of time. And I think we've been successful at that. But, as you grow a company, you're always going to have some people that need some micromanagement. And that's an unpopular thing to say on LinkedIn. So I'm for it, for everyone who can handle it.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that, like, some people, and as I get older, you accept there's nothing wrong with this.
Right.
They just want to go to a job. They want to show up at 9. They want to leave at 5. They want to do their thing. Money's not the most important thing. Maybe in our company they care about the impact, but, whatever. And, maybe that person needs some additional supervision. Not all of them, but maybe some. There needs to be some level of, let's make sure the job is getting done. Whereas, obviously, when you have A players, absolutely, give people the autonomy to create and make their own schedule and be where they want to be. And that's what I love the most. I do feel there's kind of a reality of, we probably think human beings, we tend to think everyone's like us, and you can trust us to get the work done, and this and that. And, like, some people need more of a hand. But I love the idea. When I first started in business many years ago, it's like, I don't care when someone works. And then eventually you realize, like, okay, this person needs a little guidance.
Yeah.
But we have 2 offices around the world, and everybody else works remote.
I saw, you have, how many different countries
My goodness.
are your employees?
25 or something? Yeah. All right, so you come from the U.S. Here's what we hear from some Americans. Oh, Malaysia, Muslim country. Don't want to go there, don't agree, don't feel safe. Why do you think that is? And just having arrived, what do you say to that? Or how do you feel?
I mean, the differences are really not that big a deal. Like, I would say one of the most, a big difference that you notice right when you get here as an American is like, oh, a lot of the women are wearing hijabs or
You think
more
a lot of
dress
them are?
formal. I don't know.
Seems like pretty. I don't
Maybe,
know.
yeah, like I noticed a lot of the younger one. But I don't want to assume their religion, but maybe they're not Muslim. I don't know. But the other thing I noticed, or we noticed, my wife and I, is like, oh, you know what? We can't be in the same hot tub together. You have to go to separate rooms for.
Do they at the wrist? Do they do that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So, but you know, other than that, like, it's not. I mean, it's pretty. I would say it's a very tolerant country. Like, whatever your religion is, there's people of many different religions here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's a misconception.
This is certainly not the most extreme. I mean, you go to Afghanistan. Okay, that's like a real.
Yeah,
I think
like,
people. It's easy to lump them all in together. When
well,
there's-
Indonesia is the more Muslims there by far than
Yeah.
any other country in the world, and it's not like an Indonesian Muslim is nowhere near a Muslim in Saudi Arabia. There's quite a difference.
I don't think these guys behind the assassination attempts were Muslim either.
Which ones?
in
Which
the
assassination
US.
attempts?
In the
Oh,
US.
yeah, right. Yeah, they were. In fact, one of them was a Republican, I think.
Yeah, everybody's now like trying to be like, oh, he's not one of ours.
Can we just say they have mental illness? Then leave it at that.
I will say though, people have mental illness everywhere in the world,
Yeah,
and somehow,
and they don't do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like this is the one thing. You know, I lived in the U.S. I've always been pretty libertarian, and I guess when you're libertarian in the U.S., you kind of tend to, especially if you're in business, you tend
Yeah.
to be all right. I'll be a bit more right wing politically in terms of voting, because you only have the two parties.
I mean, there's certain things here in, like, Malaysia does seem kind of libertarian leaning, except it does have strict laws for certain things, like
No drugs.
like drugs. Also, there's universal health care here, which is not
It's
very...
one ringgit to go to the doctor. I mean, not
There's
that-
also private option, right?
we go to Prince Court. It's tremendous.
Yeah, so, I mean, what do you think about the healthcare system here?
So I am very libertarian in this regard. I don't expect anything from the government. I am a foreigner here, and I will go to Prince Court Medical Center. I've gone there for years. It is still extremely affordable by U.S.
Yeah.
standards. I mean, we did a whole video with our team. We took them last year to the A to Z, medical check for like under $300. That would cost, they said, $5 to $10 grand in the U.S. And I'm happy to pay out of pocket because it's affordable and it's high quality and it's efficient and you're in and out and you're not waiting around. So, I mean, to me, that's the way the system, should be. I pay more taxes here than probably the average, person because I'm buying stuff and there's the SST tax and all that kind of stuff. And I don't live here and I don't want any services. And if I drive on the road, I buy petrol and I pay tax on the petrol, even though it's much more affordable here. And so, I think you can be more libertarian. I mean, you'd typically, be more right-wing leaning if you're a business owner in the U.S. who has libertarian views. But I will say, when you go out into the world and you see how other countries are managing it, you start to soften a bit. I mean, I inspired my parents to move part-time out of the U.S., so they chose to get a place in Mexico. And so I can see them there. They'll come and visit me here. We'll meet different places around the world. And my father said the same thing. He's like, I was always very ardent about this. And maybe I still feel that way about it in the U.S., but I can understand why it works over here. That, hey, maybe in this country, you have pretty low taxes compared to the West, and yet you still have universal health care. It's like, maybe there's something to at least think about there,
Yeah.
where you can go to the doctor for one ringgit.
I'm kind of the same way. When I was younger, I was very, libertarian, and then now I'm kind of all over the place with my political views, but yeah, I think that matters going through. I mean, just anybody who has traveled the world and seeing, oh, it works here, but it doesn't work there. I mean, makes sense.
I think just being so strong in your views that there's no alternative.
I always told my students, don't be ideological. Don't be stuck. Don't be married to an ideology because, I mean, you're really holding yourself back. I mean, being pragmatic is the main thing, and seeing the nuance and everything. And every issue is a spectrum.
Yeah.
I have a political ideology video, like why there's such a thing as a left wing and right wing. And yeah, like if you just sit somebody down and ask them their political opinions, they're going to be all over the place, and they're not going to fit neatly into a box.
Each person is, yeah.
Yeah, so.
And yet, parties in the U.S., because there's two, they've kind of convinced people, hey, you're against abortion and you like going hunting, so like, hey, vote for corporate tax cuts.
Yeah. As you got lesser of two evils most elections, but...
What do you think is going to happen in this election? Keeping in mind this will run 5 days before the election.
Oh, will it? Okay. So I primarily look at economic data when I try to determine who's going to win. Polling is fun. Don't get me wrong. I look at polls all the time, but in the ultimately they don't mean as much as people make them out to be. So I say economic data, and I already officially predicted that Kamala Harris is going to win. And the reason why is because if you look at, and this could change if, we get new economic data right before the election, but looking at the latest economic data, GDP per capita has gone up at a higher percentage compared to the previous year. So that's the first metric I look at. The second one is inflation. Inflation is going down steadily compared to last year. And the third one is unemployment rate. It's ticking up, but it's not ticking up enough where it's that much of a difference. So the only way that Trump would have a chance would be if he wishes for the economy to crash, like we go into a recession, GDP per capita actually decreases or at least slows down heavily. I have looked at every election going back all the way to the 1940s, and it wasn't just, I'm not the one who came up with this. This is economists that came up with this, and they've never predicted wrong when all three of those things were in a positive direction. Whoever the incumbent was stayed. So that means like,
is she the
it's
incumbent?
hard for me. She technically is the incumbent. It's the incumbent party, which is weird to think about because, like, to me, Joe Biden was not a strong candidate. I think he was one of the weakest incumbents ever. So if he was still in there, I don't know. Like, I don't know if the economic data would be. It's weird.
I remember being a kid. I forget what it was, but my dad and I were talking, and he's like, one day it's going to get bad enough here that people aren't going to care. Oh, he's not enough of a, he's not political enough. He's not a politician. He's not diplomatic. They're just going to vote for a bomb thrower because they're sick and tired of what's happening.
That's what happened with Trump.
And that was Trump. and
yeah.
And people just threw the bums out. Does the throw the bums out new era, does that upend this model?
I don't know. The thing is, there's a lot of people that are just disengaged now. Like I would say, there was pretty high voter turnout in 2020, but looking at what the turnout's going to be probably this election, I bet you it's not even over 50% of registered voters vote. And so really it's reaching that other 50%, because the 50% who vote have already dug in their heels. They're going to vote for who they're going to want. There's really just like 2% of the population that Harris and Trump are trying to court. And I think, the economy is going to be enough for that 2%, despite everything else. Yeah.
Not even 2%, because the game now has become who can win by 10,000 votes in Wisconsin.
It's going to be close, yeah. It's, like I said, at the end of October, look at that new economic data that comes in, inflation, unemployment rate, and GDP per capita. Well, that has to be at the end of the quarter. So the quarter will end
September.
The end of September. So they usually announce that a week or two after October ends. So, and that's preliminary data. So that's not even like they always revise it later on. So
sometimes. Far
anyway, I could be completely wrong, but that's
what happens if she wins.
I guess Trump would win in 2016 if she wins. Okay, so a lot of people just assume that it's going to be dramatically different. I don't think it really is. Like if you look at Biden, for example. A lot of the trade policies that Trump had are still in place. The tariffs, a lot of the tariffs he kept. If you look at the border policy, mostly the same. However, Biden had, when he was president, a lot more immigrants illegally crossed the border. So that was like that made the news more because a lot more people were crossing, and it made good news. Like sensationalism always sells. If you look at foreign policy, mostly the same. A lot of people say that Russia, that war with Ukraine, that would be different with Trump in there. I don't know. I think that the generals really run things, and I think that also the military-industrial complex is very powerful in the United States, and so I don't think foreign policy is going to dramatically change either, depending on who's in office.
Will they still be eating the pets?
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
I hope not. No, that was kind of a crazy story, wasn't it? What did you hear about that story?
No, it was fine. I still...
That made the news here?
No, I didn't. No, I don't. Oh, well, no, it made the news on Instagram. It's on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, it was all the memes.
Everybody
Yeah.
gets their news, right?
Yeah.
And then people are putting their dog in like a souffle pan. And
Yes.
No, so what's interesting is being 13 hours ahead right now of the East Coast, I woke up at 9 a.m. and just plugged it on the TV while I'm eating breakfast.
Yeah, it's crazy what makes the news and what doesn't.
That was international news. I mean, we have people from Venezuela. Venezuela's being mentioned. I'll tell you, here's the thing that I've learned is in 2016, I'm not a Hillary fan, but I think if you're an expat and you said, I want the status quo, let me live overseas, leave me alone, I'm already from the only country effectively that makes me at least file a tax return and go through all the rigmarole, I think Hillary would have kept that. I think Bernie Sanders would have been the best candidate for expats. I don't care how conservative you are. There were rumors that Bernie Sanders wanted to end citizenship-based taxation, whereas I do think, and I've had people tell me this, like the right wing, at least the populist right wing, is like, we have the best country in the world. If you're a citizen, you don't want to live here, to hell with you.
Yeah.
That would be the right wing that would make your life more difficult, as someone who says, hey, I'm American, but I don't want to live here. And for me, it's not because I hate Trump. I know there's no nuance allowed around this, but it's not because I hate Trump or disagree with Trump and everything. But I said to myself, some of the stuff about, hey, expats and America first, all that, I felt like this is going to get worse for me living overseas. And that's when I decided to cut the cord.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
If someone's going to wave the flag and say, y'all got to come home,
Yeah.
it was not going to be Kamala.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think of it like that. Like for me,
Because the thing about like the Obamas was, they hate this country, so of course they would understand that you want to live somewhere else.
I mean, I made a video about what makes a good president. I made another video about what the president actually does. And to me, I think a lot of Americans have this another misconception that the president has more control than they actually do. I think Congress is the one that you should really look at. And what we're going to see probably is a Senate that's Republican majority.
Do you think so?
And a House that's this is my prediction, not based on anything other than vibes, but the House
vibes prediction.
House of Representatives that's a Democratic majority. So you're probably not going to see a whole lot done over the next 2 years, at least. So
I mean, if you look at these presidents who serve 4 years, if they get one signature policy objective at a high level done, that's
Biden actually did. That was what's crazy is that he had the Inflation Reduction Act, he had the CHIPS Act, which, I mean, those, in my opinion, I think they were more good than bad. A lot of people, though, don't care about that. When the ones who don't like Biden, they're still nostalgic about the lower inflation of Trump's term, So I think that's the main thing people vote on.
What's interesting to me, though, is we had this guy Cyrus Jansen at our event, and he's spent a lot of time in China and what's going on with China, and talked about the U.S. puts these sanctions not only on Russia but on Chinese companies, for example.
Yeah.
And they don't realize this region, Malaysia, used to be a very strong, partner with the U.S. And now it's like, it seems like there's more economic opportunity with China. And hey, let's do technology with you. Let's buy your Huawei stuff. This, that, the other. This idea that the U.S. can just sanction anyone they don't like and they're going to turn to dust, I think is over. And I'm not sure that they understand that.
They need to get over that. Just my opinion, but yeah, it's a missed opportunity. China is. Look at the entire continent of Africa. African countries are generally have better relationship with China than the United States.
Latin America's largely going that direction as well, to some extent.
Yeah. I haven't followed this closely, but I've been amazed by the investment. I mean, even North America now, Chinese investment is skyrocketed, and we need to focus. I mean, I know there's in the United States, one of the few bipartisan things now is like passing a bill that's anti-China, like the TikTok ban.
Yeah.
That was one of the, I mean, if you look at the past year, there's like at least a dozen laws that are effectively anti-China bills.
And then you saw them, they subpoenaed the head of TikTok, and who was it, Tom Cotton? Again,
Yes.
like, you can be right-wing. This Tom Cotton, very right-wing guy. Like, dude, Tom, the guy's Singaporean.
Yeah.
He's not Chinese.
Yeah, it was embarrassing to watch that hearing of the members of Congress that
Like, we get it, you want to play to your base.
they do, but they never even use TikTok. I mean, that's, as you could tell, that's also something I'm very against, is banning TikTok. I think if you ban anything, any app, I think you're doing more harm than good. I mean,
Do you know what I'll say, though? And here's another thing that I wish people understood. We get some flack sometimes. We'll hire people from Eastern Europe, 25-year-old women, who are, in some cases, total killers. And they'll talk to you about literature, and they'll talk to you about geopolitics, and they'll talk to you about history, and they know where Kyrgyzstan is on the map. And then I talk to my friends in the West. I have a guy who's 48. He's dating a 45-year-old woman. Oh, what do you talk about? Oh, she tells me about her favorite TikToks of the day. And it's like, yeah, there's not really a comparison.
yeah, I'm personally actually not on the app that much. I do have a MrBeast account.
Mr. B and TikTok.
I put my video, but yeah, it's the swiping. It's like a slot machine. It's very addictive, and you just have to like say no. And
I really wish, and I want everyone to live the way they want to live, but I really wish before people were critical that they took time to understand that there are beautiful 25-year-old women in countries they've never heard of who will tell you about the most arcane literature, and they are of a maturity level higher than 40-somethings in the West. I really,
interesting. Well, there are laws now that are being passed at the local level in the United States, just banning social media for kids.
I saw that.
And I have a 13-year-old and 10-year-old, and I'm like, yes.
You want that.
I do, for kids.
You want them to ban
It's
it?
because it's so addictive. It's like a
Yeah.
drug. It's like we don't let our kids do marijuana or drink alcohol or...
Well, in France they do.
Oh, France.
And the libertarian would say, well, you guys should keep an eye on your kids, put a camera in the room, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the exceptions, to have the government on your side, big bad government, to say, "Hey, it's not me, kid. This is the law."
Where you had to deflect the
Responsibility.
right. Interesting. What
Well, I
else?
mean, just it's a cultural thing. That's a taboo. What's taboo? This is taboo for kids because it has it causes health problems. This is something that adults should be partaking in. I mean, if you make it illegal, I mean, here in
I
Malaysia,
mean, adults in the U.S. can't partake from 18 to 21.
yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. When so many 18 to 21-year-olds do, culturally, it's
Yeah.
accepted, but still illegal. What's the drinking age here? Is it 21?
Is it 21? This is the
Okay.
rare place where it actually is.
What was it before? 18. Really?
Like in Europe, it's 18.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, no doubt there's a little bit of conservatism here. I mean,
Yeah. I'm surprised it was 18 though here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, most places are 18. I don't know. Here's my thought, right, is when you have a lot of other people who think the way you do, that it backs it up. But when you do one thing and act superior when no one else agrees with you, it's a little odd, don't you think?
Yeah. But you could be right. In 100 years, you could be seen as like this visionary.
I mean, that New Zealand is going to prohibit people of any age from smoking. You'll be 70 years old eventually, and it'll be illegal to buy cigarettes.
I had no idea about that.
They said, well, there's some year like, okay, this year it's 18, and then like next year, like the people can't buy cigarettes.
Wow.
It's like we're gonna, like basically like, this is the end. And so
You can't kill yourself with cigarettes
by
anymore.
2035, I will
Yeah.
say, looking at like Portland in Oregon,
Yeah.
and seeing like didn't they legalize a lot of hard drugs?
They decriminalized.
It
yeah.
did cause me to I mean, by the way, so did Portugal.
Right.
So, all right, why did Portugal do better than Portland? But, it causes me to question. That's an issue, by the way, that I get a lot of. I never really got along because I don't do those drugs. But I just kind of think, hey, if you want to,
right.
What do I care?
Your body, your choice type of situation.
Yeah, I'm pro-choice on that issue.
Yeah.
But yet, when is it? What is the proverbial when your fist meets my nose on you doing drugs?
Especially considering that your brain doesn't fully develop as a man until you're in your mid-20s, right? So, like, think about. Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak for people generally, but myself, when I was a young man, I was not very responsible with alcohol, but I also was dumb. Like my brain wasn't fully developed as a 18, 19-year-old. So like, I do think that kids do need, there need to be some interventions.
That is one thing that you're seeing, by the way, and I don't know that anyone expected that a decade ago, that young men are not voting Democratic, that they're voting, populist, right-wing. They're voting for Trump because they feel excluded.
Yeah.
Because it's the bloc that, you're not really supposed to talk to. You're supposed to talk to everybody else except for, men.
They are now the Left Behind group, the group that has been ignored while others have been focused on. And so now there's a bit of a crisis because you have a lot of young men, and a lot of my audience is actually young men. So I'm acutely aware of this problem, that are just have no direction and feel like they have no purpose, and many of them are doomers, like they've given up, and so to them, like if they are engaged politically, they're just like burn it all down, and I think that's demonstrated.
Trading meme stocks. We interviewed the Wall Street Bets guy a couple of years ago.
Oh, did you?
I mean,
yeah.
Hey, listen, going for broke because I'm not going to win it anyway. Yeah. I'm not the chosen favorite anymore.
Declining rates of going to college. Now, if you look at new applicants to college, it's overwhelmingly female. So
there is some cultural shift, I think, to acceptance of blue collar work because that's where the money is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I know when I taught in the classroom for 12 years, at our high school, we emphasized, because, we had kids that clearly college was not for them. So we had special pathways, for lack of a better word, for them to get involved with the trade. So we had several. We focused on mechanics, actually. So many of our grads were like already ready for a career in mechanics, which I'm glad that's changed. That's been actually one positive shift.
What I realized that Midwestern humility is, it's not about success, the proverbial success, wealth. It respects hard work, and I'll respect anyone who works hard. And I think it's a good thing that we're progressing to where anyone who does any job, that they work hard at it,
definitely
can be respected.
Oh, yeah.
Not just in the white collar field.
It's a much needed shift for sure. But also, I'm a workaholic. I think you are too. So it's a balance. Got to find a balance.
Well, with that, Mr. Beat, I hope you enjoy Malaysia.
Ah, yes.
Glad to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me here. Yes.